What is going on, everyone? And today we are going to talk about the original Xbox, because the original Xbox came out 20 years ago today on November 15th. Hard to believe it's been 20 years. So just like my other videos on the PlayStation 2, Nintendo 64, I'm going to show you all the games that I have for it. As you can see, this is a lot of games. And talk about the console and my history with it, the first time I played it, and my experiences with it, and yeah, it's just gonna be a good time. So stay tuned. Hope you guys enjoy. So first of all, back in 2000 and 2001, the idea of Microsoft getting into the video game business seemed like kind of a crazy idea. I remember even at the time, I was like 11 or 12 years old, and my dad told me, like, hey, Microsoft is going to get into the video game business. They're going to make a video game console. And I was like, what? Like, that just sounded so weird, because when you think of Microsoft, at least back then, when you thought of Microsoft, you thought of, like, computers and Windows. You didn't really think of video games. So the idea of them making a video game console seemed, pretty risky and pretty crazy. But of course, it ended up working out pretty well for them. But it actually started off kind of rough, because the original Xbox never made a profit for Microsoft. So financially, it was actually a failure, because they didn't make a profit and then they took a hit. But still, the original Xbox, laid the foundation for what the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One and now the series of Xboxes would later become. And of course, Xbox Live was a really revolutionary thing. But we'll get into all that just in a little bit. But anyway, my first experience with the Xbox didn't come until maybe a year or two after its release, because originally I got the PS2 first, because I still prefer the Sony platform because of the exclusive games. The PlayStation just generally had more games that I would like to play on it. Not so much the original Xbox. But there is no doubt that the original Xbox is way more powerful than the PS2, and also more powerful than the GameCube as well. It was definitely the most powerful console of the 6th generation, if you don't count PC, of course. But if you just count home consoles, the Xbox was clearly the winner when it came to hardware specs. So obviously, games then could look a lot better on it. Most games ran in 480p, some games ran in 720p, high definition, even 1080i. And it also had a hard drive, so technically memory cards, even though it did support memory cards, because the controller has 2 ports on the top that you could put memory cards into, you didn't really need them because you had the built-in hard drive. And you could also rip CDs, music CDs, and also copy them to the hard drive on the Xbox, which is all really, really cool at the time. And because you couldn't do that on PS2 or any other console. So the original Xbox, from the get-go, was trying to imitate computers, because you could do so much on this console. And it also had DVD support right out of the box. Well, actually, no, it didn't. The PS2 did. The Xbox, you needed to buy this little controller adapter that plugged into the front, and then you could watch DVDs. But it still had the ability to do it, you just had to buy the DVD playback kit. With the PS2, you could just use the DualShock. But with the Xbox, you had to unlock it with a DVD kit. But anyway, from the get-go, though, you can tell that Microsoft really wanted to use the Xbox, not just for video games, but also for just entertainment in general, for listening to music and watching movies and all that stuff. And they still kind of use that same idea today. They're still using the Xbox for all that stuff. So anyway, how I first got the Xbox was, my dad eventually bought me one. I think it was like 2002 or 3. But I didn't really play it that much, to be honest. I mean, honestly, during the Xbox's full lifespan, which honestly wasn't very long, because it only was on the market for like 4 or 5 years. And then when the 360 came out, then, Microsoft was focused really on the 360, and everyone jumped ship on the original Xbox and went for the 360 because that was the future. So the original Xbox didn't have a very long lifespan, but it still had a lot of games though. But still not the longest lifespan. And throughout its lifespan, I really did not use it to its greatest degree. I only played like a few different games, and some I didn't really enjoy, and I just kind of abandoned it for a while. And this Xbox, I just got 3 years ago when I was in Austin, Texas, visiting my friend there, and we went to a Goodwill, and they had like four of these here on the Goodwill shelf. And so he bought 3 and I bought the last one, and so this is mine here. In fact, you may have noticed that I actually still have the original Goodwill price sticker on here, and you can see it's from July of 2018. So now I'm just going to peel that off, and it's been on there a while, but it came all the way off, so good. So now that's all off, and now there's no sticker. So anyway, yeah, so I got this one, and I brought it home, and ever since then I've been collecting quite a few original Xbox games, because the original Xbox games are still really, really cheap today. There's been a couple of them that have gone up in price a little bit, like Conquer Live and Reloaded, for example. But pretty much all the others are like $15, $10, and even less than that. So this is definitely a good system to collect games for right now. That might change in the future. They've been saying it will at some point, but so far it still hasn't happened. The original games for the original Xbox, still very common, and most of them are still really, really cheap. So I still have, I have quite a collection. This is by far my biggest collection of physical copies of games for any console I've had, I think. So we'll get to the games in just a minute, but back to the console though. One game that I really enjoyed playing on the original Xbox, believe it or not, was Shenmue. Shenmue 2, actually. The original Xbox was what introduced me to Shenmue, because I never played Shenmue on the Dreamcast, and we never got Shenmue 2 over here on the Dreamcast in the States. So if you wanted to play Shenmue 2 here in the States, you had to play it on the Xbox. And I remember seeing the game in the store and being like, oh, this game looks really cool. And not knowing anything about the first game at the time, I was like, man, this looks really, really cool. And I eventually was able to get it and play it, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed playing through Shenmue 2, and just the adventure part of it and everything. Like, I really, really liked it. So that's honestly my best gaming experience, at least back then, with the Xbox, was playing Shenmue 2. A few other games I played on it back then were Blinx the Time Sweeper, which I honestly didn't like. I wasn't a fan. And I also played Fusion Frenzy. I mean, it's okay. And I think Forza Motorsport, and maybe a couple others. But most of those games I don't have here. Most of these games are games that I did not play back then, because I only had because like I said, I only played like maybe 4 or 5 games for the Xbox back then, and it's like during its initial run, so not many. But the very first game I think I played on the Xbox was Reckless, which is this game right here. So I think that's the very first game I played on it. Now, like I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things about the original Xbox was Xbox Live. And I forgot to mention this in my PlayStation 2 video, but the PlayStation 2 was actually the first console that I played online. And the reason for that was because it was free. The original Xbox, you had to pay a subscription service to play the online features. And for And for some people, like me at the time, I didn't have a job and everything. So the fact that the PlayStation 2 online service was free, you didn't have to ask your parents to, to pay a subscription service every month to play your games online, that was a real big deal. But arguably, the Xbox definitely gave you the better performance and the better online experience. But unfortunately, I was never able to experience that because they shut down the servers in 2010, and I still didn't have a job at that point, so I was not able to play Xbox games online, unfortunately. But I would love to now. And there actually is a workaround. Games for the Xbox that supports System Link. You can use a program called X-Link Kai on your PC and basically do like linking up through the computer, and you can sync up with other players and you can play games technically online using the System Link support. So that is possible. And there is a project called Project Insignia that is trying to bring back the original Xbox Live service and at least enable online play for at least a few games. There haven't been any real major updates on that in a while, so I don't know when that's actually going to launch. They were saying last year, now they're saying maybe next year, this year, so it's been really delayed. But I really look forward to that, and hopefully that comes to fruition at some point. But anyway, yes, so I was not able to play the original Xbox online at the time, so I cannot comment on that, but I'm sure many people did and they enjoyed it. And it really set the foundation for what Xbox Live would eventually turn into, or as we're trying to call it now, Xbox Network. Are we still trying to call it Xbox Network, or are we giving up on that? I'm not sure. But Xbox Live, yeah. But unfortunately, servers are shut down, so can't do that. But honestly, that's it. Like, that's honestly my experience with the Xbox. Not the most exciting story, I guess, But yeah, this is the second time I've had it. The first time I had it originally, I didn't have it very long. Shenmue 2 was my best experience with it back then. But now I have all of these games. Now there's so many games here that I'm just going to go through them really quickly. If I spent time talking about each one, we would be here forever. So I'm just going to go through them real quick. Just go through them as fast as I can so we can get through this. First up, we have Arctic Thunder. Really, really good game. I really enjoyed this one. Let's see, Midway Arcade Treasures 3. And this has Hydro Thunder on it. So pretty cool. Namco Museum 50th Anniversary. Dead Man's Hand. Haven't tried this yet, but it looks interesting. Super Monkey Ball Deluxe. Pretty cool. Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Whiplash. It's like a platformer game. Mech Assault 1 and 2. Crimson Skies, High Road to Revenge. The Sims 2. And most of these games are complete, by the way, with their manual. There's a couple of them that don't have it. Thrillville. I enjoyed playing Thrillville off the rails on the 360. Rayman Arena. And Black. Next up, let's do this stack here. Reckless, as I showed. Pirates, The Legend of Black Cat. Greg Hastings, Tournament Paintball Maxed. 4x4 Evo 2. Splashdown. Carve. Love my boat racing games. Drive for Life, or Drive Volvo for Life. Yeah, it's just Drive for Life. Hot Wheels Stunt Track Challenge. This isn't bad. Smashing Drive. Juiced. And here's Forza Motorsport. I paid $50 for this back in the day. Now it's like a $3 or $4 game. That's the way it goes. and Big Mother Truckers. And last up, this last stack, we have Whacked, Spyro: A Hero's Tale, Burnout 3. This is one of the games I played online on PS2, and it was really fun. But never played this on Xbox Online, unfortunately. Burnout 2, the developer's cut, Crash Twinsanity, and Crash Nitro Kart, and Crash Tag Team Racing. So I'm trying to get all the Crash games for the Xbox. Torque, Prehistoric Punk. It's like another platforming game, which is very unique and exclusive for the Xbox. Outrun 2. Crazy Taxi 3, another Xbox exclusive. Flat Out 2. Power Drone. Sega GT 2002, and this is not the bundle, this is just a standalone game. Mad Dash Racing. Room Zoom, and this has no manual. Apex. And finally, and this is a game I did have as a kid, or as a young teenager, Quantum Redshift. So not bad, futuristic racer. So those are all of the original Xbox games that I currently have and collect. I'm still looking for some more. One being like Slot Car Thunder. That's another arcade racing game I want to get. And a few others. Again, the Xbox had a lot of games the PS2 also got. But the fact that the Xbox is a more powerful console, most of the ports perform better on the Xbox. Might be a few exceptions, but most ports perform better on Xbox. So while maybe back then I preferred PS2, now if a game is on PS2 or Xbox, I'll get it on Xbox, to be honest. So I really do like the Xbox. I may not have appreciated it as much as I should have back in the day when I was a teenager. But I definitely do now. And this Xbox, by the way, the one I have here, is one of the last models that were made, because mine was manufactured in 2005, and that was the last year they were manufactured. So the good thing about that is that this Xbox, since it was made so late, the clock capacitor problem that plagues a lot of original Xboxes is not an issue with this one. So that's a good thing. But unfortunately, there's also some other changes they made that may not be optimal, but whatever. It doesn't really matter what Xbox you have; they all work fine. Just keep track of the capacitor issue, and also there is an issue that might happen maybe in the distant future with the original Xboxes, because the motherboards on the Xbox. The hardware is all tied to that particular board. So like if your hard drive eventually fails, the Xbox will not work. So time will tell what will happen with that. You would have to soft mod it or hard mod it to put another hard drive in there. So that's a concern down the road. But for now, we're probably still good for quite a while. So I wouldn't really worry about it. But the Xbox is a very common console, though, to mod, and you can do quite a few things with it. But I don't plan to do that with this one, though, not until maybe the hard drive fails in it or a disk drive fails. But also the later Xboxes, I think, are also more difficult to mod. So might have to get another Xbox anyway, so it'd be easier to mod. But anyway, guys, so that's it. That's my experience with the Xbox. A very good console. And lots of great games, very cheap games. So if you're wanting to collect for a console, the original Xbox is really a very good console to collect for, because the games are very plentiful. There's plenty of them out there, and most of them are really cheap. So if you're looking for a cheap console to game on, the original Xbox is a very, very good choice. So guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to give it a like if you like this video. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And thank you for supporting me and watching. and I will see you next time.